$1 produced more genuine belief than 20. That is the anomaly. A group of people paid 20 times less to tell an identical lie ended up, by their own private ratings, actually believing it more. Positive 1.35 against negative 0.05 on a scale where the control group, who lied to no one and gained nothing, sat at negative 0.45. The people paid the most money to lie landed almost exactly where the people who never lied at all landed, and the people paid almost nothing drifted furthest from the truth, into something that looked uncomfortably like sincerity. Hold that discomfort. We will earn it. In 1959, a psychologist named Leon Festinger, working with a graduate student named James Carlsmith at Stanford University, brought individual subjects into a small room and gave them an hour of nothing. Not difficult work, not meaningful work. Turning wooden pegs a quarter turn, over and over, then removing them, then doing it again. After that, spinning a full tray of spools, resetting it, spinning it again. No purpose, no skill required, no endpoint that mattered. The task was engineered specifically to be as devoid of interest as a human task could be, because the researchers needed a blank canvas, a task no rational person could enjoy, so that any later claim of enjoyment could only be explained by something happening inside the mind, not by anything happening in the room. Then came the request. As each subject finished, an experimenter explained, almost apologetically, that the next participant was waiting outside, and that a research assistant who usually described the task as interesting had failed to show up. Would the subject step in and tell the next waiting participant, a stranger seated just beyond the door, that the task they were about to do was engaging, enjoyable, even fascinating? For this favor, the subject would be paid. Some were paid $1. Others were paid $20. Both groups performed the same lie to a stranger, about the same tedious hour they had just personally endured. What did the researchers expect to find? The obvious hypothesis, the one that fits how compensation is assumed to work in every other domain of human life. More money should produce a more convincing performance, or at minimum, a more knowing, detached one. Pay someone $20 in 1959, a considerable sum equivalent to a solid week's wages for many at the time, and you would expect them to lie fluently, perhaps even cynically, fully aware they were being compensated handsomely for a harmless fib. Pay someone a single dollar, barely worth the effort of walking to the next room, and you would expect a flimsier performance, or at least a lie the subject would privately dismiss as meaningless. Incentive theory, in its crudest form, predicts that belief should track reward. More money, more justification, more comfort with the deception. That was the assumption walking into the data. The data did not cooperate. After lying to the waiting stranger, each subject was brought aside, ostensibly for an unrelated exit survey, and asked, privately, with no incentive to keep performing, to rate how enjoyable they had actually found the peg-turning and spool-spinning task, on a scale running from -5 to +5. The control group, who had done the boring task but never been asked to lie about it to anyone, rated it at -0.45. Mildly tedious, as expected. Rational. Nothing had happened to distort their assessment because nothing had asked them to defend a contradiction. The $20 group rated the task at -0.05, essentially identical to the control. They had lied convincingly enough to a stranger, and then walked away from that lie almost entirely unchanged in their private judgment. The lie had cost them nothing internally. It sat outside them, explained, filed, closed. The $1 group rated the same monotonous hour of peg-turning at +1.35. Not neutral, not mildly tolerant, genuinely positive. These were people who had just spent 60 minutes doing something meaningless, been paid a token sum to call it fascinating to a total stranger, and then, in a private room with no audience and nothing left to gain, told researchers they had actually enjoyed it. The smaller the bribe, the larger the belief that formed around the lie the bribe had purchased. This is the moment most people quietly recognize something about their own life they have never said out loud. Subscribe if you want to keep catching that recognition before it slips back under the surface. Here is the architecture beneath the anomaly. The human mind does not tolerate holding two contradictory positions at once. I found this task boring, and I just told someone it was fascinating, without resolving the tension somehow. Festinger called this cognitive dissonance, the psychological discomfort produced by inconsistency between belief and behavior, and the mind's compulsive drive to eliminate that discomfort by whatever route requires the least internal cost. When the payment is large, the mind has an immediate, external, entirely sufficient explanation available. I lied because $20 is a lot of money. The behavior is fully accounted for by the incentive. There is no leftover tension requiring resolution because the contradiction between belief and action has been absorbed by a reason sitting outside the self. The belief about the task itself never needs to move. When the payment is small, that external explanation collapses under its own weight. $1 is not a sufficient reason to lie to a stranger's face. The mind, unable to locate an adequate external justification, is left holding an unresolved contradiction. And contradictions left unresolved generate a form of psychological pressure the organism is compelled to relieve. The cheapest available relief, cheaper than confronting the possibility that you casually deceive someone for almost nothing, is to alter the belief itself. If the task actually was enjoyable, there was no lie. There was no hypocrisy to sit with. The mind does not experience this as fabrication. It experiences it as simply discovering, upon reflection, that it had liked the task all along. This is not a moral failure. It is not weakness, gullibility, or self-delusion in the colloquial sense. It is a load-bearing structural feature of the human mind, a mechanism that resolves internal inconsistency at the lowest available cost, and insufficient external justification is, mechanically, the condition under which that cost gets paid internally in the currency of genuine belief revision. Now look at where this operates outside a laboratory in Palo Alto. Consider the employee earning far below market value who does not resent the company but insists, with real conviction, that they stay for the mission, for the culture, for something money cannot capture. The smaller the paycheck, the more elaborate and sincere the internal case for staying tends to become. Consider the person who overpaid badly for something, a car, a course, a membership, and who does not quietly regret it but actively warmly defends the purchase to friends, more forcefully than someone who got a fair deal ever would, because a fair deal needs no defending. Consider the volunteer, the unpaid intern, the person doing extensive uncompensated favors for a friend or an organization, whose enthusiasm about how meaningful the work is tends to inflate in near perfect proportion to how little they are receiving in return. Consider the person in a relationship offering minimal reciprocity, who does not conclude the relationship is unbalanced, but instead constructs, often movingly, an account of how deeply fulfilling it is, because concluding otherwise would mean admitting they accepted very little for a great deal. In each case, belief distortion does not scale with how good the deal was. It scales inversely with it. The downstream cost of this mechanism is quiet but structural. It means the worst compensated arrangements in a person's life, the underpaid job, the lopsided relationship, the poor investment, the thankless commitment, are precisely the ones most likely to generate the strongest, most sincere, most passionately defended justifications. The mind does not reserve its most convinced beliefs for its best decisions. It reserves them for its most under-rewarded ones, because those are the ones requiring the most internal repair. This quietly corrupts self-assessment across an entire lifetime. In careers people should have left, in relationships offering little, in commitments held onto not despite the poor return, but in some sense because of it. People do not simply defend their bad deals. They defend them with more conviction than their good ones, and they experience that conviction as truth. Somewhere in your life right now, there is an arrangement giving you very little back: attention, money, respect, reciprocity, and somewhere in the same moment, a belief is quietly assembling itself to explain why you actually wanted it this way all along. It is not a coincidence that the smaller the return has been, the more convinced you likely already feel.